Secretary of Finance and Enterprise Development.
Mr. Presiding Officer, I beg to move the following motions. Standing in my name, be it resolved that this House approve the draft estimates of revenue and expenditure respecting all functions of the Tobago House of Assembly for the financial year October 1st, 2015 to September 30th, 2016, copies of which were laid on the table at an
The question is, be it resolved that this House approve the draft estimates of revenue and expenditure respecting all functions of the Tobago House of Assembly for the financial year October 1, 2015 to September 30th, 2016, copies of which were laid on the table at an earlier stage of the proceeding.
Mr. Presiding Officer, Honorable Chief Secretary, Deputy Chief Secretary, Secretaries, Assistant Secretaries, Chief Administrator and other administrators, senior staff of the Tobago House of Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the public gallery, local and international audiences following this presentation on radio, on television, and on the World Wide Web, members of the media, good morning. This morning, I am indeed humbled to stand before this honorable House to present the draft estimates of revenue and expenditure for the Tobago House of Assembly for the fiscal year 2016. Today's submission represents the combined efforts of many individuals within the Tobago House of Assembly and the wider Tobago community. And for this, I wish to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to all before I proceed. First, I wish to thank the staff of the Budget Department in the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development and the staff of the Planning Department in the Office of the Chief Secretary who have worked tirelessly over the past weeks to ensure that our statutory obligations are met. I also wish to thank the secretaries, assistant secretaries, and the staff of all the divisions of the Assembly for their contribution in the preparation of the budget estimates I am presenting today. My appreciation extends as well to the non-governmental and community-based organizations, the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce Tobago Chapter, the Tobago Agro-Processors Association, the Tobago District Agricultural Society, the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association, the Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, representatives of the labor movement, participants in the second Tobago House of Assembly budget survey, and participants in the first survey of productivity in Tobago. Your numerous suggestions have helped us identify some of the budget priorities and to shape the eventual outcomes reflected in the estimates for 2016. I also wish to thank my dear wife for her special support at all times. Above all, I thank Almighty God for His guidance and the tremendous generosity of all who have worked with me as a team to craft today's submission. Mr. Presiding Officer, today's budget statement is occurring against the backdrop of significant financial and political uncertainty. The root causes of these uncertainties lie primarily in the recent developments in the international energy markets and the seeming lack of interest by the central government in granting self-governance to the people of Tobago. We are cognizant of the fact that the decisions we make today and the postures we adopt could have deleterious consequences not only on our present generation, but for generations to come. As an administration, we will continue to take charge and be in charge of this island's development. We will continue to do the best with the resources that are available to us. We are Tobagonians. We are resilient, hardworking people. We will do whatever it takes within the law to ensure that the island's development momentum continues unabated. We have managed this island well over the past 14 years, and I have no doubt in my mind that this will continue. The program of action, which I will outline later in this presentation, will clearly demonstrate our resolve to keep this island's development advancing steadily, and that we keep our commitment to improve the standard of living and fuel prosperity for all the people of Tobago. This year, and for the second time, we have returned to the people in the form of a Tobago House of Assembly budget survey to ask their opinion regarding the 2016 budget. What was important to them, and how the budget impacted on their lives and the lives of their families. We consulted the people on what their priorities were for the next fiscal year. The responses we received, combined with all our consultations, informed the shaping of the priorities in today's budget. Moreover, our priorities continue to be shaped by the imperatives as set out in the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan for Tobago, CDP 2.0, the roadmap for Tobago's development for the period 2013 to 2017. Mr. Presiding Officer, as an administration, we are working towards changing the legislative arrangements between the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government that continues to stymie our developmental aspirations. The status quo must not be allowed to continue. We must revisit and remove all the legal shackles to Tobago's development. Notwithstanding our many challenges, we remain steadfast in our commitment to deliver to the people of Tobago. And that is why this year's budget is appropriately themed, Continued Delivery in Challenging Times. Mr. Presiding Officer, I now wish to set the context for the proposals I'll be presenting later with an examination of the global, regional, and local environment. Since my last budget statement, if there is one word that characterizes the global, regional, and local environments over the last 12 months, it is uncertainty. Beginning mid-2014, we have witnessed the dramatic collapse of oil prices, followed by a decline in the price of natural gas in the markets to which Trinidad and Tobago exports. Our benchmark crude, West Texas Intermediate, fell from an average price of US $105.79 per barrel in June 2014 to US $59.29 per barrel in December, a fall of 44%. West Texas Intermediate prices fell further in the first quarter of this year and is currently settled around US $60 per barrel. Natural gas prices have also declined substantially, albeit not as sharply. Natural gas prices in Japan fell from US $16.40 per MMBTU in June 2014 to US $13.40 per MMBTU in April 2015, a decline of 17%, while prices in Europe fell over the same period from US $10.20 per MMBTU to US $7.40 per MMBTU, a fall of some 28%. Energy experts are now fairly certain that there will be no rebound in prices in the near term, and it will be several years before prices return to the levels of 2014. The implications for Trinidad and Tobago are serious, as our crude oil production has been declining and is now at the lowest levels since the 1950s, and because there is no prospect for volume increases in natural gas production and exports from the current levels of 4 billion cubic feet per day. This means that the country's export earnings from the energy sector will continue to decline, and so too will government revenues over the medium term. This collapse in oil and gas prices has come at a time when the economic growth in Trinidad and Tobago appeared to be rebounding. The economy grew by 1% in 2014, and inflation, while still highly variable, seemed to be trending downward. The foreign exchange reserves reached US $11.3 billion at the end of 2014, boosted by the Clico-Proman settlement, amounted to over 12 months import cover. The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago began to increase the repo rate last year and continued to move that rate up as the calendar year began. Commercial banks have responded by increasing their base lending rates, and as a consequence, lending rates are beginning to increase. However, this has not yet begun to affect the mortgage loans. The central government recognized that it needed to make meaningful and credible adjustments in its fiscal operations in order to deal with this new reality. While the government did reset the budget prices of oil and natural gas in the national budget, it has attempted to manage the adjustment by suppressing some areas of expenditure, delaying payment, and securing one-off revenue flows. This has adversely impacted the administration of the business of the Assembly, which has experienced inordinate delays in receiving scheduled transfers from the Ministry of Finance. The central government's inadequate fiscal adjustment was flagged by Moody's, and this resulted in a one-notch downgrade of Trinidad and Tobago's sovereign rating from Baa1 stable to Baa2 negative. As a consequence, there was also a downgrade of the rating of the Tobago House of Assembly because our operating institutional framework is strongly linked to that of the central government. Mr. Presiding Officer, the Tobago House of Assembly is, however, comforted by the fact that Moody's has found the Tobago House of Assembly's financial performance to be relatively strong. Moody's noted that the Tobago House of Assembly's gross operating balance averaged 11.3% of operating revenues over the period 2010 to 2014, and the cash financing surpluses have been roughly balanced at 0.7% of total revenues over the same period. This speaks to the prudent financial management by the Assembly. The firm also pointed out, and I quote, "The Tobago House of Assembly's net direct and indirect debt measured 9.8% of total revenues at the end of 2014. And with no expectation of further debt, Moody's expects that the debt-to-revenue level to decrease in the near future. As a result of its balanced cash financing results, the Tobago House of Assembly's working capital, measured as current assets minus current liabilities, averaged 16.9% between 2010 and 2014, a solid level that was cited as one of the Assembly's main credit strengths," end of quote. The presiding officer, Moody's also indicated that our high net working capitals allow the Tobago House of Assembly to absorb potential external shocks. Mr. Presiding Officer, the second source of uncertainty has been uneven growth in the global economy and the variable trajectory of international interest rates. The United States Federal Reserve brought an end to its quantitative easing policy in October last year, and the financial markets have been anticipating rising interest rates in the United States as a result. This is yet to materialize, as the Federal Reserve continues to assess the strength of the recovery in the United States economy, particularly the state of the labor market. So, Presiding Officer, while the economy of the United States grew by 2.4% in 2014 and the United Kingdom by 2.6%, growth in European economies as well as China slowed in 2014. The United States economy is projected to grow by over 3% this year, while the UK economy will improve slightly to a projected 2.7%. The European Central Bank has now embraced the technique of quantitative easing, and as a consequence, the EU economy should perform better in 2015 and beyond. The Greek crisis, as well as tensions in Ukraine and in the Middle East, do, however, provide some downside risks to European growth over the medium term. The third source of uncertainty has been the setting of the date for the general elections. The uncertainty surrounding the date, which has now been revealed as September 7, 2015, has affected the ability of the private sector to plan its affairs and to press forward with important investments. The timing of the general elections and the serial distractions in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago have also affected the progress of discussions between the central government and the Assembly on internal self-government for Tobago, which we had hoped would have been further advanced following the Assembly's elections in January 2013 and the resolution by the political parties in Tobago in 2014 to pursue talks with the central government. Mr. Presiding Officer, Tobago is now faced with fresh challenges consequent to the fall in the prices of oil and natural gas and their impact on the foreign exchange earnings and revenues of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and the general and continuing uncertainty in the global political and economic environment. It is important, therefore, that we seek to consolidate the significant gains we have made in recent years, and with stagnant or even possibly lower expected revenues, focus our efforts and initiatives for maximum effect in order to sustain the growth momentum and continue the transformation process. Mr. Presiding Officer, having established the context in which this budget will be presented, I intend first to review in summary our budgetary performance for fiscal 2015, what we have committed to and what we have delivered in the last year. I will then address the initiatives and projects we intend to pursue in fiscal 2016. And lastly, I will present the draft estimates of expenditure for fiscal 2016, consistent with our priorities and projected resources. Mr. Presiding Officer, the Tobago House of Assembly in the year ended September 30, 2014, received a total of $2,428,676,294 in funding from the Ministry of Finance in accordance with the parliamentary appropriation for the fiscal year. The Assembly received funding for recurrent expenditure of $1,888,887,987 and $539,788,307 for the development program. Included in this sum was $187,880,000 allocated for the arrears of public officers. The sum of $207,044,211 was collected in Tobago on behalf of the Consolidated Fund and offset against the total parliamentary appropriation, therefore bringing total receipts to $2,635,786,000 $720,505. Revenue generated independently by the Tobago House of Assembly totaled $38,590,360. Recurrent and development program expenditure incurred by the Tobago House of Assembly in fiscal 2014 amounted to $2,464,766,847. Of this sum, recurrent expenditure amounted to $1,797,791,674, while development program expenditure amounted to $666,975,172. Under the contingencies account, $146,741,607 was collected as unspent balances for the year ended September 30th, 2013, and set aside to finance urgent and unforeseen projects in keeping with improving the standard of living of all Tobagonians. Of the many important projects undertaken, the major ones funded by the contingencies account included the Unemployment Relief Program, URP, at $49,416,337, the Community-Based Environmental Protection and Enhancement Program at $20,666,666, the acquisition of lands at Orkinscure at $16 million, funding in support of the Tobago House of Assembly's Human Capital Development Program totaling $6 million, and the construction of sporting pavilions at a cost of $3,442,544. Mr. Presiding Officer, before I begin the presentation of estimates of expenditure for the Assembly for fiscal 2016, I wish to address the issue of the Auditor General's report on the financial statements of the Assembly for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2006. This report obtained a great deal of attention and commentary in the local and national media. Allow me to reaffirm this administration's commitment to the highest standards of transparency and accountability in the conduct of our work and the expenditure of public money. The report for fiscal 2006 is being released 9 years after the financial year it references. The question of relevance to the current work and operations of the Assembly naturally arises. Additionally, certain errors or issues with accounting practices adopted and referenced in the report may have reoccurred in subsequent years. Mr. Presiding Officer, permit me to explain some of the key issues arising from this report and to put these findings in proper perspective for the public record. In particular, I wish to point out that there was not a single reference in the Auditor General's report to malfeasance or any impropriety on the part of the Tobago House of Assembly. Mr. Presiding Officer, all government's accounts in Trinidad and Tobago are prepared on the cash basis in accordance with the respective legislation and the rules and regulations made from time to time by the Comptroller of Accounts. Financial statements prepared using the cash basis report receipts and payments of the Assembly for the fiscal year, but give little or no detail of assets accumulated by the Assembly or the details of liability. The Tobago House of Assembly, to its credit, attempted to prepare its financial statements on the accrual basis, a more complex basis than the cash basis, to reflect fixed assets account receivables and liabilities in its financial statements. We attempted this and to present our accounts in accordance with international best practices. However, in the absence of the formal adoption of an appropriate accounting framework, and given the complexity of government accounting using the accrual basis, the Assembly's financial statements did not fully conform to the accrual basis, giving rise to a number of issues reported by the Auditor General. We must note that these are issues of accounting and financial reporting and in no way indicate any wrongdoing on the part of the Assembly. Mr. Presiding Officer, Executive Council Minute number 577 of June 2014 has addressed these issues decisively, and we are moving towards the full implementation of the decision of the Executive Council in fiscal 2016. These decisions include the establishment of a more formalized archiving system for the Assembly's records so as to ensure that transaction details can be retrieved when required for audit purposes. This issue is actively engaging the attention of various divisions of the Assembly, and the revision of the Tobago House of Assembly rules as well. These rules were drawn up subsequent to the passing of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996, tabled in this Honorable House and transmitted to the Cabinet to be laid in Parliament. However, this was not completed as required by Section 52 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. Consequently, the Tobago House of Assembly's modified financial rules of 1990 remain in force. As a result of the policy of the Assembly to adopt the International Public Sector Accounting Standards as the accounting framework, the financial rules will require further updating, and I am pleased to announce that the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development is currently undertaking this exercise. Mr. Presiding Officer, additionally, we are currently working with the Auditor General's Department to address the issues contained in the 2006 report. The Chief Administrator, the Accounting Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly, recently held several meetings with the Auditor General's Department in an attempt to resolve these outstanding issues. Mr. Presiding Officer, in my last budget statement, I indicated that the Executive Council took a decision to adopt and implement international public sector accounting standards. This decision was based on the recommendations contained in a consultant report dated March 31, 2014 on the Assembly's financial reporting systems. The implementation of IPSAS will improve the quality of our financial reporting, provide the opportunity for greater efficiency in our operations, allow for greater transparency, and minimize the potential for impropriety in the Assembly's operations. We commissioned the consultants review precisely because, as a responsible administration, we recognize the need to adopt international best practices in our financial reporting and related issues. The consultancy was therefore intended to provide the Assembly with recommendations on the adoption of an appropriate financial reporting framework that can deliver the desired level of accountability and transparency. We are also cognizant that greater autonomy in the governance of our affairs will demand a higher level of accountability in the administration of government. Mr. Presiding Officer, we will accelerate our efforts in fiscal 2016 towards the full implementation of the decisions contained in Executive Council Minute number 577 of June 2014. Specifically, we are currently reviewing the organizational structure of the accounting functions within the Assembly with an aim of making necessary adjustments for optimal performance. We have taken steps to ensure that all the accounting staff across all the divisions of the Assembly are appropriately trained to execute their respective functions. This is an ongoing exercise which we intend to escalate in fiscal 2016. The implementation of an electronic fixed asset management system to effectively track and account for the Assembly's fixed assets is currently underway. This system is being piloted at the Office of the Chief Secretary and will be accelerated in fiscal 2016 to cover all divisions and departments of the Assembly. The Assembly is also actively considering the establishment of a comprehensive procurement policy consistent with international best practices and the new public sector procurement legislation. A pilot project at the Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities has been scoped for implementation in the first quarter of fiscal 2016. And we will commission in fiscal 2016 the establishment of an appropriate IT platform that will strengthen operational efficiencies across all divisions of the Assembly and further improve the financial reporting of the Tobago House of Assembly. This initiative will lead to the modernized paperless processes. This initiative will lead to modernized paperless processes with greater efficiency within the Assembly. Mr. Presiding Officer, from the outline provided, we are demonstrating our commitment to the modernization of the Assembly's accounting system. The importance of this issue has been understood and embraced by the Chief Secretary, all secretaries, assistant secretaries, the Chief Administrator, and all administrators. As Secretary with responsible for finance, I will dedicate my personal attention and oversight to ensure that we deliver on this promise. But let me end this discussion as I started by once again putting on record this administration's pledge to full accountability and transparency in the operations of the Assembly. Mr. Presiding Officer, please permit me to review the budgetary performance of the Assembly over the last year. As an administration, we have been able to achieve a significant number of our targets over the past 12 months since my last budget presentation. Despite the many challenges that we have faced, we have been able to surmount the majority of them. Allow me then to examine the macroeconomic environment in Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, this administration has continued its work to ensure that we have the kind of economic environment in Tobago that is conducive to growth and development. In this regard, preliminary data from the Survey of Business Establishments conducted by the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development indicates that in 2014, Tobago's GDP at constant prices averaged TT $1.86 billion, up from TT $1.65 billion recorded in 2011. What these figures suggest is that unlike the economic stagnation occurring in the broader national economy, the Tobago economy seems to be quite buoyant. The greatest contributors to growth over the period 2011 to 2014 was government spending, which grew by 53.2%, personal services, which grew by 12%, and finance, insurance, real estate, and business services, which grew by about 8%. A closer look at the data suggests that the services sector is still the dominant sector in the Tobago economy, accounting for about 89% of Tobago's GDP. Further, The results indicate that in 2014, the share of general government activity in Tobago's GDP averaged 49%, the share of finance, insurance, real estate, and business services averaged about 21.4%. The tourism sector, which comprises hotel and guest houses, and distribution and restaurants, accounted for about 12% of Tobago's GDP, and the share of transport, storage, and communications averaged 5% of Tobago's GDP. In respect of the labor market, the latest data available from the CSO indicates that unemployment in Tobago in the fourth quarter of 2014 was 3.5%, compared with 3.8% in the first quarter of 2014. Youth unemployment, persons under the age of 35, also declined from 14% in the first quarter of 2014 to 11% in the last quarter. But this remains still, Mr. Presiding Officer, uncomfortably high. The proportion of the labor force in Tobago with tertiary level education rose marginally from about 12% in the first quarter of 2014 to 13% by the end of the fourth quarter, a figure which compares very favorably with that of many other countries in the region. We might also note that the proportion of the labor force employed by the state in Tobago has declined from about 60% in the first quarter of 2014 to about 54% at the end of the fourth quarter. Focusing on inflation, last year when I presented the budget to the people of Tobago and to the national community, I indicated that the problem of food price inflation was a major challenge for policymakers on the island. I also indicated that as an administration, this is a matter we were giving some particular attention to addressing. Today, I am pleased to report that inflation in Tobago has begun to recede, and the problem of food price inflation seems to be under control. To illustrate, the latest data available from the CSO indicates that for the first quarter of 2015, headline inflation in Tobago averaged about 2%, down from about 6%. Notably, the decline in headline inflation in Tobago was largely driven by a decline in food price inflation. Indeed, while core inflation remained steady at about 1% in both periods, the rate of food price inflation, which averaged about 14% in the first quarter of 2014, fell to about 1% in the first quarter of 2015. Mr. Presiding Officer, permit me to look at the gains we have made in revitalizing the tourism industry. Building on the successes of previous years, this administration continues to work towards the revitalization and expansion of the tourism industry on the island. Over the last year, the Division of Tourism and Transportation embarked on several initiatives to stimulate activity in the tourism sector. The division successfully negotiated the air services with Gulf Airlines from Brazil to Tobago, which commenced in January 2015, the return of Virgin Atlantic to Tobago, which commenced in April of 2015, and increased flights from British Airways to Tobago, from once per week to twice per week for the winter season. The Division of Tourism also successfully hosted the 16th Blue Food Festival, which attracted over 3,000 patrons, and the Tobago Jazz Experience, which attracted arrivals estimated at over 20,000. In addition, the Division of Tourism participated in several regional and international tours to promote Destination Tobago. Tours included the World Travel Market in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which attracts more than 26,000 travel professionals from over 40 countries, the World Travel Market in London, as well as promotional tours to Latvia, Austria, Switzerland, and Scandinavia. Further, the division successfully negotiated and is in the process of finalizing the purchase of Sanctuary Resort and Manta Lodge. These acquisitions will add just over 50 high-end rooms to Tobago's room stock. Beyond this, the division repaired and upgraded several tourist attractions, such as Fort King George, the Kings Bay Beach Facility, the Charlottesville Beach Facility, the Mount Auburn Bay Beach Facility, and the Pigeon Point Heritage Park at a cost of $8.2 million. Additionally, the division has provided financial assistance under the Assistance to Small Properties program for the upgrade of several small properties, including Castle White, Viola's Place, and Arthur's by the Sea, at a cost of approximately $1.5 million. As a result of the various initiatives of the Division of Tourism, there has been an increase in tourist arrivals to Tobago. For the winter season, December 2014 to April 2015, international air passengers arrivals increased moderately from 17,991 from 17,883 in 2013-2014, an increase of 0.6%. For the period December 2014 to April 2015, total cruise arrivals increased to 51,273 from 15,903 in the same period a year earlier, an increase of more than 200%. Domestic arrivals by ferry fell to 179,933 in the same period, December 2014 to April 2015, from 190,957 for the same period a year earlier, a decline of about 6%. However, domestic arrivals by air increased from 187,414 to 191,926 for the same period, December 2014 to April 2015, compared to the corresponding period a year earlier, an increase of approximately 2.4%. Occupancy rates in both hotels and guest houses have also experienced moderate increases. The latest data from the Division of Tourism indicates that the average occupancy rate in hotels for the period December 2014 to March 2015 was about 55%, roughly the same as in the corresponding period a year earlier. However, the occupancy rates in guest houses for the period December 2014 to March 2015 averaged about 41%, up from 34% for the corresponding period a year earlier. Mr. Presiding Officer, please allow me to examine the gains we have made in the development of the Tobago private sector. Mr. Presiding Officer, while we continue to make significant strides towards the diversification of the Tobago economy and the development and expansion of a robust private sector by fostering an enabling environment necessary for all Tobagonians to have opportunities to start and expand their business enterprises. Through the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development, two signature programs, the Enterprise Assistance Loan Program and the Enterprise Assistance Grant Programs, Tobagonians have been given financial assistance as well as the technical advice to start, operate, and expand their businesses. In respect of the loan program, approximately $1.2 million was approved and disbursed to successful applicants over the last year. Since the introduction of this program in 2003, loans totaling $27.1 million have been disbursed to 262 Tobagonians to facilitate entrepreneurial activities. In respect of the grant program, over the past year, approximately $1 million was approved and disbursed to 56 recipients. More than 40% of all recipients of the grant program are young adults, and 44% of the recipients are females. And since the introduction of the grant program in 2011, grants totaling $11.8 million have been disbursed to 688 Tobagonians. Beyond financial assistance, the Business Development Unit provided basic training to its clients in core areas of entrepreneurship, such as customer service, marketing, and bookkeeping. The unit also facilitated the participation of Tobago's entrepreneurs and their products in several national, regional, and international trade shows and investment conventions, including the Trade and Investment Convention in Trinidad, the Caribbean Fashion Week in Jamaica, the Specialty Food Summer Fancy Food Show in New York, the Toronto Harbourfront Festival in Canada, and the Commonwealth Countries League Fair in London. These opportunities were crafted with the intention of improving Tobago's business models by providing the following: exposure to clients in external markets, prospects for securing foreign contracts, the opportunity for networking with other stakeholders, and this was all geared in preparation for Tobago's business for the export market and to provide the necessary opportunities for Tobago's entrepreneurs to gain insight into external markets as well as the trends that will influence their business today and in the future. Funds permitting, Mr. Presiding Officer, this activity will continue in fiscal 2016. With reference to our flagship diversification project, the Cove Eco-Industrial and Business Park, the Assembly continues to provide avenues for Tobagonians to develop business enterprises. 2 multi-producer units, which allow several production facilities to share the same space, are currently under construction at Cove at a cost of approximately $30 million. I am pleased to announce that completion of the first MPU is scheduled for July 2015, and the delivery date for the second MPU is scheduled in September 2015. To date, 5 prospective tenants, primarily in the agro-processing industry, have already expressed their interest in occupying the multi-producer units, and an advertising campaign to secure other tenants is ongoing. Mr. Presiding Officer, I'm also pleased to report on the activities of the Venture Capital Equity Fund, through which the Assembly continues to partner with entrepreneurs by supplementing the equity risk capital needed to start or expand businesses with good prospects of success. In alignment with the CDP 2.0, the Venture Capital Equity Fund identified 6 areas of focus. These are clean light manufacturing, agriculture and agro-processing, niche tourism, clean renewable energy and green technology, information and communication technology, and creative arts and entertainment. Mr. Presiding Officer, you may recall that earlier this year, I announced that the Executive Council approved the disbursement of a total of $2 million in funds for 2 businesses in the woodworking and food and beverage industry to commence operations. I'm pleased to announce that the official signing ceremony will take place in the month of July, with the disbursement of funds to the 2 recipients. There are currently 6 proposals under consideration of the Board of Directors of the Tobago Venture Capital Equity Fund. And I hope, Mr. Presiding Officer, that by the end of the calendar year 2015, I will also have more good news to announce as it relates to venture capital. During the past year, the Tobago Information Technology Limited, through its Employment Exchange Bureau, which links job seekers to opportunities in the private sector, registered 1,421 job seekers, increasing the total number of job seekers who have utilized the system from 2,234 to 3,655. 60 employers are currently registered on the system. And after consultation with the private sector, the Division of Financial Enterprise Development took a decision to permit registered participants of the YACS program to access the Employment Exchange Bureau in order to improve the efficiency of the labor market and to ameliorate labor shortages in certain parts of the private sector. Mr. Presiding Officer, I now turn my attention to education. This administration has invested significantly to improve our educational infrastructure. And in this context, over the past year, approximately $1 million was spent on the refurbishment of 5 early childhood education centers at Montgomery, Moriah, Signal Hill, Speyside, and Buku. And in addition, the sum of $15 million was spent on the primary school repair program in fiscal 2014 for the construction, extension, refurbishment, upgrade, and improvements to existing primary schools. Further, major upgrades totaling $6 million were undertaken at all existing secondary schools on the island. And in support of special education on the island, approximately $1 million was spent for the completion of a new wing and the fencing of the Happy Haven School at a cost of $1 million. $500,000 was spent on upgrade work to the Tobago School for the Deaf, Speech, and Language Impaired. Mr. Presiding Officer, as part of the teacher training project, the division undertook a series of workshops that catered to the academic needs of secondary schools. These training in various subject areas were undertaken to ensure that each student was adequately prepared for their CSEC and CAPE examinations. Mr. Presiding Officer, we are confident that the investments this administration is making in education is beginning to bear fruit. And let me cite some examples. At the primary school level, there has been significant improvement in the performance of students in the National Assessment Examination. At the secondary school level, as it pertains to the National Certificate for Secondary Education, there has been significant improvements in the results for students obtaining 5 or more subjects. In 2013, the percentage of students attaining 5 or more subjects stood at 43%, and in 2014, this figure rose to 50%. As it relates to the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate examinations in 2014, the percentage of students attaining 5 or more subjects, inclusive of math, mathematics, and English, also rose from 30.6% in 2013 to 36.3% in 2014. And the number of CAPE scholarship winners increased from 2 students in 2013 to 8 students in 2014, with 2 open scholarships and 6 additional scholarships. Mr. Presiding Officer, I now turn my attention to our improvements in healthcare and social service delivery. We continue to improve the range and quality of the services available at our various health institutions throughout the island. Over the last 12 months, over 1,600 cataract surgeries were performed through the comprehensive integrated eye care program thereby significantly reducing the number of persons listed and awaiting surgery. At the Scarborough General Hospital, several new health services were introduced, including corneal transplant services, hemodialysis services, speech therapy services, and cardiology services. Approximately 15 persons per week and over 700 persons yearly benefited from the cardiology services at the hospital, and this service will be further enhanced with the opening of the cath laboratory in 2016. In addition, under the Needy Patients Fund, 153 persons were able to access grants totaling approximately $1.5 million to treat with a wide range of medical issues. To replace the aging fleet of ambulances and to improve the reliability of this service to the island, 10 new ambulances were purchased and outfitted, enabling greater efficiency, effectiveness, and reliability in the provision of emergency services to all areas throughout Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, in the area of the provision of social safety net for the most vulnerable, this administration has spent just under $11 million in order to provide a wide array of social programs. These include the Program for the Realization of Economic Achievement, the Golden Apple Adolescent Partnership Program, the Child and Family Development Program, the Program for Adolescent Mothers, the Alcohol and Drug Prevention Program, and the various programs of the Economic and Technological Empowerment Center and the Tobago Rehabilitation and Economic Empowerment Center. Mr. Presiding Officer, with respect to housing, the Tobago House of Assembly requested $400 million to fund Tobago's housing program in fiscal 2015 and received only $23 million. What was most disappointing was the lack of collaboration by the central government to work with the Assembly to find alternative funding mechanisms, such as bond financing, which would have been able to treat with this long-standing problem. To address the shortfall in funding, the Assembly mobilized resources from the Contingencies Fund and curtailed recurrent expenditure in order to finance public sector housing in Tobago in 2015. Mr. Presiding Officer, it is not magic, it is prudent management. Consequently, the Division of Settlements and Labor continued working towards making housing available to Tobagonians and improving the housing stock on the island. In this regard, construction work is ongoing at Adventure Phase 2, and 62 of the 78 two-bedroom townhouses are nearing completion as part of the first phase of this project. The preparation of 116 service lots at Corland and 45 service lots at Bell Garden continues apace for delivery in the third quarter of fiscal 2015. In addition, financial support was extended to Tobagonians to improve their homes under the Home Improvement Grant Program at a cost of $5 million for 418 persons. Under the Home Improvement Subsidy, approximately $500,000 was expended, and under the Home Completion Program, $1.3 million was expended to assist approximately 150 persons to improve their homes. Mr. Presiding Officer, I am now pleased to report on the progress that we have made in the agriculture and agro-processing sector. The Assembly continues to provide support to increase production and employment in the agriculture, agro-processing, and fisheries industry. The Division of Agriculture is charged with the responsibility for supporting farming through the distribution of planting materials, the development of agricultural access roads, assistance with land preparation for cultivation, the provision of financial assistance and incentives, the provision of market opportunities and training programs, and the provision of extension services. Over the past year, Extension officers conducted approximately 3,000 farm visits to crop and livestock farmers to provide technical advice, assist with registration and applications for incentive, and to diagnose field problems. Agricultural officers also conducted 75 home garden field visits to encourage and support the development of home gardens on the island. Notably, approximately 170 new farmers applied to be registered. Over the past year, 102 farmers applied and received incentives amounting to $600,000. And through the Tissue Culture Laboratory, more than 250,000 tissue cultured plants were produced for distribution to the farming community in Tobago. The Division of Agriculture has increased efforts to engage young persons in agriculture with support for the YAPA program. And in this regard, Mr. Presiding Officer, I am pleased to announce that the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development and the Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing and the Environment will collaborate to ensure that farmers, both young and old, can access the requisite funding to commence or expand existing farming, fishing, or agro-processing business activities. As such, the Enterprise Assistance Fund and the Enterprise Assistance Grant Programs will be expanded to give special consideration to facilitate the expansion of the agricultural sector. Additionally, in support of the fishing sector, this administration continues to expand its network of fishing facilities on the island, thus ensuring that our fisherfolk can operate in HACCP-compliant facilities. 2 new facilities have been constructed in Lambo and Pigeon Point to allow fisherfolk to process and sell their catch in a clean and safe environment. The Assembly has commissioned a program to facilitate the training of fisherfolk by hosting several safety at sea workshops, as well as financial management training specifically tailored for fisherfolk. Mr. Presiding Officer, permit me to highlight some of the improvements we have made in our physical infrastructure. The Assembly has invested significantly in this area, and today, Tobago's physical infrastructure compares favorably with many countries in the region. Under the road resurfacing program over the last 12 months, 68 major roads were resurfaced in areas throughout Tobago at a cost of $83.4 million. In addition, upgrades were done to 32 secondary roads at a cost of $59.9 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, I'm also pleased to report that the Shore Park Cultural Complex and the Scarborough Library were completed and commenced operations in this year. The Cultural Complex is a state-of-the-art modern facility with seating for approximately 5,000, easily making it one of the largest facilities in the English-speaking Caribbean. Our main auditorium features surround sound audio, an 80-foot stage, plush theater-style numbered seats with wall-to-wall carpeting, as well as wheelchair ports for the ease and comfort of the members of our differently abled community. The size of the facility also allows for the placement of a 30-foot-plus sports floor, thus expanding the range of possibilities that are inherent and immediately available to the people of Tobago and beyond. Mr. Presiding Officer, work has begun in marketing the venue for convention tourism, and representatives from Tobago attended this year's Confex conference, where the facility was showcased and a number of significant leads were generated. It should also be noted that the Tourism Development Corporation has included the Shore Park complex on its list of conference venues. Major events already held at the complex include the In His Present concert with an estimated attendance of 3,000 persons, the Tobago House of Assembly's Thanksgiving service themed United in Praise with an estimated attendance of 2,500 persons, and the JW pre-convention with an estimated attendance of 1,000 persons. Mr. Presiding Officer, turning to the Scarborough Library, this recently opened facility was commissioned in February of this year. It houses 4 libraries, 3 of which are aptly named after distinguished Tobagonians, namely Dr. Eastland Mackenzie's Children's Library, the James Bigot Adult Library, and the Susan Craig James Heritage Library. The Scarborough Library also houses a theater-style auditorium named after the former head of the Tobago Library Services and former presiding officer, Mrs. Anne Mitchell Gift. Mr. Presiding Officer, please permit me to highlight the advances we have made in empowering communities and building community infrastructure. For the period October 2014 to May 2015, the Division of Community Development and Culture processed 144 applications for financial assistance and dispersed approximately $3 million to village councils, churches, cultural groups, and fishing associations. Over the last 5 years, 5 new state-of-the-art community facilities were commissioned, including 2 Y zones at Plymouth and Mason Hall, and 3 new multipurpose facilities at Lowlands, Lambeau, and Bethesda. All facilities were outfitted with computers and internet access to improve access to ICT in those communities. The Division of Community Development also upgraded community centers and facilities at Mount St. George, Pembroke, Patience Hill, Delaford, and Speyside. Over the past year, in collaboration with the Tobago Information Technology Limited, the division established additional IT literacy and walk-in centers in Moriah, Speyside, Bonaccord, Lambeau, and Bethel, and reopened and refurbished the Mount St. George Center, increasing the number of centers to 40. Approximately 12,300 persons utilized the walk-in center facilities, an increase of 39% over the previous year. Similarly, approximately 500 persons successfully completed training in computer literacy this year. During the last year, the services of the 211 call center was utilized approximately 200 times. This is an increase of 26% over the previous year. During the last year, the 211 call center facilitated approximately 4,000 transfers to persons seeking emergency assistance from the police, fire, and the Tobago Emergency Medical Service ambulance. This figure represents a 32% increase over the previous year. Mr. Presiding Officer, please allow me now to examine some of the strides that we have made in developing human capital on the island. In recognizing the importance of the quality of our human capital to the development process, the Tobago House of Assembly continues to invest in upgrading the capacity of our people. For example, over the past 12 months, through the Department of Advanced Training and Advisory Services, the Assembly awarded 166 bursaries and grants for Tobagonians to pursue tertiary education at a total cost of $5.6 million in a wide array of academic disciplines. Further, DATAS continue to provide financial assistance for tertiary education to 140 existing awardees at an annual cost of $2.3 million. DATAS has also provided career guidance consultations to an average of about 100 persons per month. Additionally, DATAS has collaborated with the Youth Energized for Success program and in collaboration with several secondary schools in Tobago, hosted career fairs in order to better prepare young persons in Tobago for the world of work and for university life. The collaboration between DATAS and YES has also extended in the facilitation of persons participating in the Central Bank's annual summer internship program. And I'm pleased to announce today, Mr. Presiding Officer, that 4 persons thus far have benefited from this initiative. There are several other initiatives instituted by the YES program, all aimed at upgrading the quality of our human capital in Tobago. For instance, under the Life Skills program, several young adults participated in training geared towards enhancing personal life skills and helping them to deliver the right attitude towards achieving their goals. Sessions included topics such as time management, anger management, financial literacy, career planning, entrepreneurship, public speaking, and substance abuse. Life skills seminars were conducted at John Dyer, Mason Hall, and Bethel. Over 300 persons benefited from this program. In addition, under the YES program, resume writing and interview skills workshops were conducted to assist young persons to prepare them for job interviews and to prepare professional resumes. 6 training sessions were held every quarter, and the class attendance averaged at least 20 participants. Mr. Presiding Officer, in concluding the review of our budgetary performance, I wish to reiterate that I am proud of what we have been able to achieve, notwithstanding the perennial shortfall in funding from central government. Clearly, all aspects of our lives have been positively impacted with resultant improvements in our standard of living. And I am pleased to say that this performance will continue in fiscal 2016. Mr. Presiding Officer, please permit me to look at the various initiatives we propose to implement in fiscal 2016 as we seek to consolidate our gains. We are mindful of the global environment with respect to the international energy markets and its implications for Trinidad and Tobago and for Tobago. Indeed, over the course of this fiscal year, we have had to adjust some of our expenditure. As we adjust an environment of lower oil and gas prices and greater constraints on the availability of resources, we have to ensure that the significant gains we have made in Tobago are not dissipated or eroded. Key projects must be completed if the benefits are to be fully realized. This is our inviolable commitment to the people of Tobago to continue to deliver in the midst of challenging times. I will outline the key projects and initiatives which we began in previous years and which we must now continue or complete, and I will now outline how we propose to move these forward. Mr. Presiding Officer, this administration continues to enforce policy, institute systems, and establish a solid foundation in support of this island's economic growth. The transition to a more enabling environment is being led by select Tobago House of Assembly enterprises, buttressed by departments assembly-wide. The work of several departments is geared towards establishing the environmental preconditions for strengthening the economy and increasing opportunities for prosperity, business activity, and innovation. I wish to make special mention of the Business Development Unit, the Eco-Industrial Company of Tobago, EIDCOT, and the Tobago Information Technology Limited. While earlier I identified some of the ongoing work, please permit me now to share some of the plans which will impact our economic space in the medium to long term. Mr. Presiding Officer, in the upcoming fiscal year, we will advance activities at the Cove Eco, Industrial and Business Park, actively increase our strategic alliances with international agencies, strengthen the capacity building services provided to our entrepreneurs, and expand on technological pursuits in innovation and ICT infrastructure. These, we are confident, will bring us closer to the realization of some of the outcomes outlined in the island's Comprehensive Economic Development Plan for Tobago, which speaks to this island's long-term economic transformation. In staying true to the company's raison d'etre of meaningful development of Tobago's economic sectors, while maintaining the Tobago brand, EIDCOT will improve and increase tenanting at the Cove Eco, Industrial and Business Park, while enhancing the support infrastructure. The company will build on earlier gains to further increase Cove's tenancy and ensure occupation of the two multipurpose units. These MPUs will be occupied by small and micro agro-processing enterprises. Agro-processing continues to be a high priority sector for stimulation by this administration, and the larger available spaces have also been assigned to this sector to afford the intended local agro-processors the ability to satisfy the prerequisites for obtaining certification to export locally manufactured products to Europe and North America. Intensified construction activities at the Cove and direct marketing and promotion have also increased applications for tenancy and demand for additional factory spaces. To satisfy these requests, another factory building will be constructed to house additional tenants, increasing the factory stock to 6 in total by next year, an investment of $16 million. In addition to build space, there are approximately 60 land lots now available, and existing lots will be resized to cater to tenants who may require smaller lots for the establishment. So, Presiding Officer, I am pleased to report that the park is indeed open for business. The Eco-Industrial Development Company must ensure that its tenants have access to infrastructure to ensure their businesses are competitive. In this regard, the company will be making a significant investment in fiber optic cabling amounting to $3 million to provide state-of-the-art communication access to all tenants, thus minimizing technological barriers. This will be commissioned, Mr. Presiding Officer, in August of this year. In December, a cell site will be erected by TSTT to serve the park, and this follows the signing of a lease agreement between two parties earlier this year. A recycling and waste processing facility has also been approved for operation at the Cove, and in addition, progress has been made with respect to the license to enable Deca Petroleum to operate a processing facility that will utilize condensate from the National Gas Company to produce bitumen and other byproducts for export nationally, and regionally. As part of the economic transformation of Tobago, the Tobago House of Assembly, through IDCOT, commenced work on a plan to develop the animation industry in Tobago as we seek to develop the creative and ICT sectors on the island. This initiative is a collaborative undertaking with the key participants being the Division of Community Development and Culture and the Division of Education, Youth Affairs, the Tobago Information Technology Limited, and YTEP. These entities are being supported by Anime Caribbean, the NGO which has championed the development of the animation industry in Trinidad and Tobago. The strategy being adopted is to leverage the experience gained in Trinidad in developing the fledgling animation industry and to fast-track the knowledge transfer to the benefit of Tobago. IDCOT will provide subsidized space at the Cove Eco-Industrial Park to entrepreneurs who emerge in the industry in Tobago in support of the establishment of their business operations. Phase 1 of this initiative will commence in September 2015 with a duration period of 18 months. Mr. Presiding Officer, entrepreneurship continues to be supported by the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development through its Business Development Unit. The Business Development Unit, through the Enterprise Assistance Fund and the Enterprise Assistance Grant Programs, has injected close to $3 million in financing in the last year to support the small and medium enterprise sector. The unit will, in the upcoming fiscal period, re-engineer its internal processes and overall approach to fund administration. This will result in greater efficiency, enhanced application procedures, and a reduction in delays of approvals and processing of applications and disbursements. The new standard will result in a 30-day processing period, thus effecting significant improvement compared to the over 45-day window which generally applies. This responsiveness to the needs of our clients will undoubtedly benefit those targeted by the fund and grant programs. Additionally, greater focus will be placed on strategic trade missions with robust follow-up to ensure market penetration to export niche markets by Tobago businesses. While the Business Development Unit has supported trade missions to London, New York, Canada, and Jamaica recently, more can and will be done to ensure Tobago's businesses, particularly BDU clients, maximize the benefits from these opportunities created abroad. The unit will improve its capabilities to support local startups by further administering specialized capacity building support via its Strategic Business Development Unit. Furthermore, enhanced training programs will be delivered to clients to improve the business awareness of entrepreneurs in the areas of e-commerce, marketing, and cash flow management. Value-added services will also be provided to BDU clients for the sharing of resources. It is also envisioned that the BDU clients will now be in a stronger position to address deficiencies and grow their business enterprises. Stronger advocacy and increased partnership building with potential donors, and interest groups will also be employed to provide clients with enhanced access to new markets. Mr. Presiding Officer, Tobago's ICT backbone and infrastructure are also being strengthened not only to facilitate expansion at the Cove Eco-Industrial and Business Park, but also as an investment by the Tobago House of Assembly in our communities, businesses, and human resources. The Tobago Information Technology Limited, whose mandate is to enhance service delivery through the application of technology, has facilitated access to technological tools, training, and resources once unavailable on the island. The company was established to manage the 211 call centers, as well as 6 community walking centers, and also facilitates the necessary support for the emergency medical load program. In all instances, ICT has been applied to enhance the quality of life of all our citizens. Recognizing the enormous contribution technology can make to the economy by increasing efficiency and fostering new economic opportunity, the Tobago Information Technology Limited will commence construction of an innovation center at its offices at Signal Hill in the last quarter of 2015. This administration will build upon present trends in ICT that are directed at the creation and exploitation of knowledge-based economies by instituting our very own innovation system. The construction of the Innovation Center and the formalization of a business incubation system through linkages with the Business Development Unit, Cove, and the Venture Capital Investment Company Limited will ensure that Tobago is not left behind with the necessary technical resources to develop the respective sectors and skills on the island. With the Innovation Center in particular, Tobagonians will experience the development of new sustainable technologies, training and international certification in ICT disciplines, increases in the ICT capacity on the island, the creation of an experimental zone for new technologies, and an incubator for private sector ventures. With the mandate to stimulate the creative industries through exploring opportunities in animation, EECOT will also benefit from the establishment of the Innovation Center. Some BDU and venture capital clients will also be able to further obtain assistance from resources at the Innovation Center. Up to now, Tobagonians who have the talent and creative genius in dance, drama, fashion and design, film and animation would have to go elsewhere to fully develop their talent and creativity. The Innovation Center will create a space where these persons can work and innovate, and with the help of the Business Development Unit and the Enterprise Assistance Fund, learn to monetize their skills and talents. Mr. Presiding Officer, I now turn my attention to the tourism sector. According to the World Tourism Organization, international tourism is forecast to continue its growth trajectory as one of the largest and fastest growing industries. As we pursue overall economic diversification, this administration will continue to develop the tourism product as it remains an important contributor to our economic growth and development. We are indeed proud of the continued recovery of the sector following the global recession. However, the sector faces certain challenges that we are seeking to address. Historically, there has been a significant focus on the UK and European markets. The UK market is currently serviced by twice-weekly British Airways flights and the recently renewed 3-year agreement with Virgin Atlantic, which also provides twice-weekly service in the winter and weekly flights during the summer season. Condor's weekly service to Frankfurt has provided access to the important German market. With the successful recommencement of the weekly Scandinavian service, this expansion will increase the total European airlift to Tobago to 6 flights per week during the peak winter season. Concurrent discussions for direct airlift out of Toronto will allow access to the 4th most populous city in North America and one with strong linkages to Trinidad and Tobago through its diaspora. The Division of Tourism will continue to focus on the expansion to different source markets in order to minimize dependence on traditional North Atlantic travel markets and to exploit variations in seasonal travel demands. While the recent addition of the Brazilian route is still a nascent initiative, it is a significant emerging economy with the most populous city in the Americas and represents a gateway to the South American market. Mr. Presiding Officer, another challenge that is being experienced by the tourism sector is a need for significant reinvestment in aging infrastructure that supports our tourism trust. The facilities at both the domestic and international terminals at the A.N.R. Robinson International Airport are insufficient to meet today's needs, much less tomorrow's anticipated demands. Traveling is in essence an experience with passengers typically spending over an hour within terminals, and modern air travel is quickly evolving to include innovations that improve both passenger flow and efficiency in an aesthetically pleasing environment. Also, passengers are increasingly choosing their layovers as fervently as they select their destinations. An enhanced passenger experience with local design elements will provide a captive audience for local producers and service providers, as well as positively brand the beginning of the Tobago experience. So, Presiding Officer, the public will recall that in May 2011, a commitment was given by the central government at the ceremony to rename the international airport. And that commitment included a commitment by the government at the time that an international airport will be constructed in Tobago at a cost of $500 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, this project was shovel-ready prior to May 2010, and after the promise made public in May 2011, what we are now presented with is a program of minor renovations and repairs at the A.N.R. Robinson Airport. This is yet another instance of broken promises by the central government in respect of projects and initiatives essential to the development of the island of Tobago. Our need for upgraded air and cruise ship service facilities is a priority, and this we will continue to bring to the attention of the central government in fiscal 2016. In respect of new and existing hotels, Mr. Presiding Officer, the central government's loan guarantee program and the Tobago Development Tourism Fund are still facing significant implementation challenges. However, room stock expansion must accompany increased marketing efforts. And we refer not just to the quantity of rooms, but also to the quality, as there currently exists a shortage of high-end accommodation on the island. It has been estimated by the sector that an increase of at least 1,500 higher-end rooms will significantly increase our attractiveness and, as such, continue to enhance Tobago as a destination of choice and not simply of price. Mr. Presiding Officer, I will now turn to activities in agriculture and agro-processing. As this administration seeks to build upon the gains in agriculture over the past 14 years, there is no doubt that this sector continues to experience certain challenges. And these include an aging population of farmers, small farm sizes, increased incidence of pests, for example, agouti, the iguana, and coquelicot, the scarcity and high cost of labor, and the low utilization rate of modern technology. During the coming year, the Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing, and the Environment will be implementing its strategic plan. And this plan was developed with the CDP as its focal point and will utilize the value chain approach as the preferred method of implementation for all projects, covering all points from production to marketing. The projects to be implemented in the upcoming fiscal year in the Division of Agriculture include the introduction of microtrips to treat with the issue of predial larceny of small ruminants, the upgrading of the government stock farm at Hope Farm in order to provide farmers with high-quality breeding stock, the rehabilitation of the dairy unit at Hope Farm to produce wholesome milk, which will be channeled through the school feeding program, and the construction of irrigation ponds in some areas across the island, and encouraging water harvesting to support year-round agricultural activities. Mr. Presiding Officer, I am pleased to announce that the Division of Agriculture is proposing 2 new initiatives, and this is subject to the availability of funding. The first is the establishment of a 140-acre wildlife nature park for free roaming local wildlife and temporary cage exotic exhibits. This will serve as a research center and facilitate exchange programs with universities and other similar facilities. The second program I'm pleased to announce will see the introduction of sustainable agriculture with the development of a model farm utilizing acreages of the Friendship Estate for intensive commercial production of selected vegetables and root crops. At this site, modern agricultural practices and appropriate innovative technologies will be adopted. The development will adopt the agro-park concept where public-private partnerships will be explored, seasonal and long-term employment will be created, sustainability of the environment will be encouraged and promoted, economies of scale in production will be exploited, and synergies between the agro-processing and tourism industries will be promoted. These efforts will benefit farmers and investors, lead to an increase in agricultural production and a reduction in imports. Further, these initiatives will facilitate the promotion of the eco-food branding initiative, where eco-branded food products such as fresh produce and value-added products will be marketed locally, regionally, and internationally. The development of a youth agricultural entrepreneurship program and greater emphasis on human capital development in the fisheries subsector, including training in HACCP, and the provision of facilities for the sale of fish that meet the highest standard in food safety. In fiscal 2016, the fishing facilities at Castara and Charlottesville will be completed. The division's new packing house facility will be fully operational and available to farmers and agro-processors, ensuring a higher quality of marketed produce to the Tobago public. And plans are being developed for the construction of a new market in Scarborough, which will provide a safer, healthier, and more accessible facility for both vendors and the public. Mr. Presiding Officer, I wish to turn my attention to the development of the social sector by looking at education, health, and housing. I will start my discussion by looking at education. In fiscal 2016, we witnessed the rollout of data-driven decision-making workshops for teachers and principals, empowering the assessment and evaluation programs with more comprehensive and accurate statistics to facilitate greater responsiveness and a more personalized service delivery in the education division. In addition to further research on student underachievement, this will be supplemented by continued teacher training, both in terms of professional development programs and targeted interventions in areas such as the session for the continuous assessment component of the SCA. These initiatives address delivery of specified curriculum objectives, support for differentiated instructional approaches, and the application of authentic activity-based assessment tasks for all students. Moreover, in light of the numeracy and literacy attainment at CSEC, secondary schools content area teachers will also receive support in the form of reading strategy workshops and the strengthening of the remedial math program and other such policy initiatives. The early childhood sector will also benefit from additional training and capacity building workshops. All school administrators will also be subject to school-based management training, and the teacher help desks across the island will be re-established. With regards to ICT, all schools are to be networked by the end of the current year, and this will be augmented with the establishment of an intranet portal. The computerization of secondary schools and the networking of the offices, labs, and libraries at primary schools at the beginning of fiscal 2016 will modernize educational operations. So, Presiding Officer, the expansion of infrastructure continues with annexes at Bishop's High School, Wim Anglican, Patience Hill Government, and Signal Hill Government Schools in fiscal 2016. Particularly worthy of mention are the transfer of the early childhood care and education centers from under the ambit of the central government to the Tobago House of Assembly to the Division of Education. Mr. Presiding Officer, I will now turn my attention to the health sector. Just as human capital development is important to economic development, so too is the health and well-being of every citizen. Combating lifestyle disease remains a critical challenge for health practitioners and policymakers on the island. The Division of Health in fiscal 2016 will implement a series of initiatives all aimed at combating lifestyle diseases. These include programs such as the Integrated Primary Healthcare Program, the Healthy Home Program, and the Healthy Family Program. Also part of the strategy to target chronic diseases will be a program of exercise and diet modification. Mr. Presiding Officer, we in this administration are proud of the expansion in the health services in Tobago since the start of the operations of the new Scarborough Hospital. In the next fiscal year, this administration will continue to work in making health care available to all our citizens by the construction of a new health center in Mariah, the upgrade of all our health centers in Tobago, the establishment of a registry for non-communicable diseases, the establishment of a Tobago University Hospital, and the establishment of an environmental integrated waste management program for the island. Mr. Presiding Officers, these are just a few of the initiatives that will be pursued towards the continued development of the health sector on the island. I end my discussion on the social sector by looking at housing. Mr. Presiding Officer, affordable housing options promote community development and enhance the general quality of life of the citizenry in Tobago. Housing is therefore both a fundamental need and an economic driver. Mr. Presiding Officer, there are currently over 7,000 applications for housing on file in the Division of Settlements. And sadly, the continued underfunding by central government means that there remains insufficient supply to meet the demand. Consequently, the Tobago House of Assembly is actively pursuing alternative financing mechanisms such as the public-private partnership approach to address this shortage. The goal of the Division of Settlements in the upcoming year will be to partner with the private sector to develop novel solutions geared towards the expansion of Tobago's housing stock. In fiscal 2016, the Division of Settlements will seek to initiate development works at Sherburne, Adelphi, and Friendship Estates, and accelerate the housing project at Corland. Work will continue apace at Bell Garden and Adventure Phase 2, with additional 2 and 3 bedroom units. The Division of Settlements will continue to support existing and potential homeowners through the Home Improvement Grant, the Home Construction Subsidy, and the Beneficiary-Owned Land Program. Mr. Presiding Officer, a society can be judged by the manner in which it treats its most vulnerable groups. As we press forward with the process of development on the island, there would be some among us who are unable to adjust at the same rate. Since development is about the advancement of the society as a whole, we therefore have a duty of care to ensure that systems be put in place to protect our brothers and sisters who are less fortunate. The PNM administration in Tobago, as is our custom over the years, have shouldered our responsibility in providing a safety net to ensure that social protection is provided for the most vulnerable among us. These interventions are designed to meet the challenges of individuals across the board, without regard to age, gender, social or political affiliation. For persons willing to gain economic independence and self-sufficiency, we have provided the Project for Realization of Economic Achievement REACH, where $7,500 in seed funding is provided to start up businesses. For the elderly, there's also the Golden Apple Adolescent Partnership Program, which provides caregivers to the elderly and those who are confined to their homes. Over 120 elderly citizens currently benefit from this program, and in the upcoming fiscal year, the beneficiaries of this program can expect to see a continuation of the service across Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, we propose to expand the persons with disability and also to establish a mentorship program for youth at risk in collaboration and in the expansion of all our other programs under the social safety net. The Community-Based Environmental Protection Enhancement Program was also designed to assist those who are unable to find gainful employment, but they are able to provide valuable services to the benefit of the society as a whole. While many middle-aged women with children to support, some without assistance of a male partner, have been granted relief through CPEP, and this has provided them with, Mr. Presiding Officer, a source of income, even as we seek to empower them and to train and retrain them to secure job opportunities in the expanding Tobago economy. Mr. Presiding Officer, we know that we cannot sit idly by and allow our people to become impoverished because of a lack of employment, even though there's a willingness to improve themselves. Mr. Presiding Officer, these workers play a critical role in our efforts to rebrand this island as clean, green, safe, and serene. The positive social benefits of the beautification projects across Tobago goes beyond the income the workers of CPEP receive, as it enhances the aesthetics within the communities in a meaningful way. Mr. Presiding Officer, I now turn my attention to the Unemployment Relief Program. This is another program under our social safety net that is designed to bring temporary relief to unemployed persons on the island. Today, the program has been transformed from the traditional road and bridge maintenance or sanitation focus into other important areas. One such area is agriculture. And Mr. Presiding Officer, we saw the fruits of these efforts on display at the last World Food Day exhibition. The URP is also now equipped to assist the Tobago Emergency Management Agency in disaster relief, cleanup, and rehabilitation. Many of the desks and chairs in our schools might have been manufactured at the URP Furniture Workshop. The workshop is now rebranded, and we therefore look forward to the program contributing meaningfully in many other ways in our development. Mr. Presiding Officer, I now turn my attention to the issues of crime and security. We recognize that national security is not the sole responsibility of the Tobago House of Assembly. However, we must acknowledge the importance of public safety and the welfare of all Tobagonians. Although our own personal security precedes our responsibility for our guests, if we are to continue inviting the rest of the world to share our beautiful island, we must assure them of safety and security. As we continue our efforts to propel our tourism sector, it is incumbent on us to treat every single incident of serious crime with high priority. Regardless of the number, each case must be treated as one too many. We must adopt a zero-tolerance policy for any deviant behavior in our space. We must uphold the practice of being our brother's keeper. We must also be vigilant in our respective neighborhoods and refuse to turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to anything that threatens our island's brand of clean, green, safe, and serene. According to data from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Tobago Division, there has been a 16% reduction in the incidence of serious crimes in 2014 compared to 2013, and a 24% reduction compared to 2012. The detection rate, though still low, shows steady improvements from 19.7% in 2012 to 20.3% in 2013 to 25.1% in 2014. Though the statistics illustrate overall improvements on the issue of security on the island, there is still work to be done, especially with respect to incidents of minor crimes such as indecent assault and the possession of drugs, where the records show only a 5% in reductions in incidents between 2013 and 2014. Mr. Presiding Officer, in this context, I must register my disappointment, not just in my capacity as Secretary for Finance and Enterprise Development, but more so as Joel Jack, the Tobagonian, in the reckless statements made by someone who should know better. And this statement is with regard to the safety of our island. The statements were unfounded, venomous, highly responsible, a slap in the face of all Tobagonians, and pose a serious threat to the Tobago brand and Tobago's image. Mr. Presiding Officer, the public safety and security reputation of a tourist destination is nothing to play politics with, and such sinister behavior should be condemned in the strongest form. It is also in this context that I must also register my disappointment in the current status in the matter regarding the much-needed new police stations at Grange and Roxborough. The contracts for the construction of both these new police stations had been awarded, and work was ready to begin when the current central government came into office in May 2010. These contracts were then cancelled, and although these projects were noted in success in successive national budgets, up to today, Mr. Presiding Officer, not one block has been laid for these two stations. This constitutes yet another broken promise by the current central government in respect of Tobago's development. The treatment by the government of the law enforcement agencies in a particular space is a direct reflection of how serious you are about public safety and security in that space. As I mentioned last year, and I reiterate today, the crime fight in Tobago must not be treated as another chapter in the crime plan of Trinidad and Tobago. There must be a Tobago-specific strategy which takes into account the unique circumstances of Tobago. I wish to express my gratitude and appreciation to all stakeholders who answered my call to get on board with the fight against crime, and to beseech you all to remain steadfast and committed to the cause, while also prompting others to join in the fight to conquer this enemy of the island's development. Mr. Presiding Officer, the various proposals I just outlined are just some of this administration's major initiatives to consolidate our gains over the next fiscal year and to maintain our development program, of quality delivery in uncertain economic times. Mr. Presiding Officer, even as we work to consolidate the gains we have made in the areas outlined earlier, we need to explore fresh initiatives which can have significant impact without incurring significant costs to the taxpayers. Over the next 3 years, we intend to focus attention and resources on the following initiatives, which can impact several sectors and industry, as well as the delivery of our social programs. These initiatives include the following: a program of productivity and service excellence, development of ICT and becoming an intelligent island, and the establishment of an affiliate university. Mr. Presiding Officer, as we shift our focus to productivity and service excellence, we recognize that we will not be able to compete effectively in the services industry unless we significantly improve productivity on the island. Our reputation for productivity in Trinidad and Tobago has declined. But high productivity is arguably much more important for Tobago because of the industries we are trying to develop here in our space. Low productivity is a deep-rooted, complex problem. We took a first step towards addressing productivity by conducting a study of productivity in the private sector to understand how the issue is viewed by employers and its manifestation on our island. Not surprisingly, the results speak of poor work attitudes, punctuality, and high levels of absenteeism. Time management by workers is of concern to businesses in Tobago as well. The citation of poor work attitudes of younger persons in the workforce, as well as dissatisfaction with the quality of our secondary school graduates, were also noted. From the survey results, only 1/3 of respondents in the private sector were of the view that productivity was either high or very high. In the case of tourism-related businesses, only 25% of respondents were of the view that productivity was either high or very high. We have also taken note of the National Initiative for Service Excellence, NICE, in Barbados. The Barbados Initiative recognizes that the competitiveness of the island's tourism and other services depends less on price than on the quality of the service, and that service excellence relates to the extent of the employee engagement, the quality of management, and ensuring that the businesses leave customers satisfied. NICE makes use of social media, which is also important in reaching young people, and it also promotes customer feedback on services received from Barbadian businesses and government agencies. Based on the results of the survey and our preliminary study of the Barbadian model, we are of the view that a similar program might be right for Tobago. The Assembly will, before the end of the calendar year, host a consultation on productivity and service excellence involving all stakeholders on the island, the business sector, labor, and government, to discuss specific measures to improve worker productivity, to effect better management, and provide public services such as transportation, information and communication technologies. The proposed Productivity Council will be asked to spearhead this initiative together with the Tobago Chamber of Commerce and the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, I now turn my attention to look at ICT and becoming an intelligent island. Information Communication Technology, or ICT, has the potential to be a growth enabler for any economy. It improves productivity, increases economic growth, facilitates unfettered access to information, encourages efficient governance structures, and enhances the quality of living. A responsive ICT infrastructure can augment the value proposition of Tobago and enhance our competitiveness regionally and globally. Examples of how ICT has transformed lives here in Tobago include the implementation of the highly successful 2-on-1 initiative, which provides citizens with access to the police, fire, and emergency services by the call of one number, and as well as the medical alert system for the elderly. The Assembly is committed, starting in fiscal 2016, to move Tobago towards becoming a truly intelligent island, informed and connected, as well as safe and serene. I would like to stress that it's not the intention of the Tobago House of Assembly to undertake initiatives which the private sector is perfectly capable of doing themselves. However, there are 3 areas in which action by the Tobago House of Assembly can help to move Tobago towards becoming a truly intelligent island, informed and connected, as well as safe and serene. Our first initiative will be to upgrade the Tobago House of Assembly's website, as well as the development of a mobile app to provide useful information to Tobagonians and visitors to Tobago who would make informed choices and decisions. There are 3 main areas in which we will develop useful information. The first will be the Labor Exchange Bureau, where we will invite organizations and individuals to register their supply of services, and persons desirous of finding and employing such services can make contact and do so through the website. The second area we are proposing will be the certification of hotels and guest houses, where facilities which meet standards validated by the Division of Tourism will be identified on the website with direct access to the websites of the particular facility, whether it is a hotel, guest house, or villa. The third area we propose to develop in conjunction with the Division of Agriculture is the publication of wholesale and retail prices and the availability of the quantities of agricultural produce. The Tobago House of Assembly's website will also host the Service Excellence Initiative outlined earlier, as well as a statistical digest and more detailed databases on which various aspects of highlighting various aspects of Tobago society and economy. We are also exploring, Mr. Presiding Officer, a relationship with Statistics Canada to improve data collection and dissemination for Tobago-specific data. Mr. Presiding Officer, the second initiative will directly involve the local private sector. Readily accessible information on products and services allows businesses to be more efficient and citizens to be more productive in getting value for money. In this regard, we propose to assist private sector organizations to develop apps for mobile devices which provide information on products and services, specials and discounts, and customer feedback. We intend to link such marketing innovations with training in app development. The initiative will therefore allow private sector enterprises which develop such applications and which employ young Tobagonians in a development work to access the Enterprise Assistance Grant to recover up to 50% of the cost of app development to a maximum of $25,000. We believe that this initiative will deliver multiple benefits in training those young persons interested in software development for mobile devices. It will also promote innovations in digital marketing and ultimately enhance efficiency and productivity on the island. There's also plenty of scope for public services in this regard. In other countries, a smartphone app can tell you when your bus service is arriving at your bus stop, or when your ferry or plane is scheduled to arrive. Public sector enterprises such as PTSC, the Airports Authority, the Port Authority, and Caribbean Airlines will do well to consider investing in the development of such applications which would provide information that can enhance productivity and efficiency. The third broad initiative in the transformation of Tobago into an intelligent island relates to the provision of high-speed internet access throughout the island, from Charlottesville in the east to Crown Point in the west. Our vision is for every Tobagonian, every household on the island, to have access to the internet at speeds which permit the fastest downloads of video, the fastest growing component of data on the internet, and now recognized as perhaps the most educational tool. At the moment, there is a broadband gap in Tobago in the eastern and western part of the island, which must be closed as quickly as possible. I must report that the service providers are rolling out the infrastructure to bring higher speed internet access to the east of the island. However, the question of cost is as important as access. The cost must be affordable to the average household, and the Assembly has taken note of the existence of the Universal Service Fund under the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, which is soon to be implemented. We intend to seek access to the fund in order to ensure that individuals and households, particularly in the east of Tobago, are able to obtain affordable access to high-speed internet services. High-speed connectivity is also important for the delivery of public services, including crime fighting using cameras covering wide public spaces. And this also includes emergency services such as the fire and ambulances. So, Presiding Officer, the third initiative that we intend to pursue beginning in this fiscal year is the establishment of an affiliate of an established university here on the island. Many foreign universities are interested in setting up campuses or affiliate colleges overseas, partly to develop their particular research specializations, and partly to give its professors and students the opportunity to spend part of their school time in a different learning environment. Such affiliate campuses can bring many benefits to the host territories, including tourism from friends and relatives of students and professors, increased sales of local goods and services, including repair and maintenance services, and the stimulation of the construction industry during the construction phase. To the extent that we can link such an initiative to the businesses we attract at Cove, this will also be an additional benefit to the island. We also think that given the improvements in our infrastructure, as well as better airlift to the island, now is the right time to begin to explore this initiative further with some purpose. In this regard, a committee will be established to advance this important initiative in the upcoming fiscal year. Mr. Presiding Officer, these three initiatives I have just outlined could have significant positive benefits to the Tobago economy at little cost. We will be pursuing these initiatives in the next fiscal year. And I believe all of Tobago will see and appreciate our commitment to continue our delivery in 2016 and beyond. So, Presiding Officer, I now present the expenditure estimates for fiscal 2016, starting with the recurrent estimates. Mr. Presiding Officer, the recurrent estimates for fiscal 2016 requires a total expenditure of $3.36 billion. This total is divided as follows: personal expenditure, $971 million, goods and services, $1.15 billion, minor equipment purchases, $104 million, and transfers and subsidies, $1.13 billion. Distributed across the divisions, the recurrent estimates for fiscal 2016 are: Assembly Legislature, $27 million, Office of the Chief Secretary, $229 million, Financial Enterprise Development, $253 million, Tourism and Transportation, $302 million, Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, $546 million, Community Development and Culture, $195 million, Infrastructure and Public Utilities, $596 million, Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing and the Environment, $287 million, Health and Social Services, $850 million, Settlements and Labor, $39 million, and Planning and Development, $36 million. These estimates of recurrent expenditure represent an increase of $227.4 million over the estimates for 2015. And the increase is due mainly to higher wages and salaries for public officers of $122.8 million, as well as an increase of $81 million in goods and services and $21.5 million in current transfers and subsidies. Mr. Presiding Officer, among the highlights of the proposed recurrent budget for fiscal 2016 include support for Information Technology Center, $20 million, funding for the Public-Private Partnership Unit, $8.2 million, funding and assistance to small properties in the tourism industry, $10 million, the Tourism Rolling Plan, $114 million, support to the Tobago Tourism Festival, $20 million, continued support for adult education extension services, $2.5 million, continued support for the school feeding program, $50 million, an expanded agricultural incentive programs, $3.85 million, provision of subsidies for fishermen, $1.65 million, social assistance to vulnerable groups, $6.4 million, transfer to the Tobago Regional Health Authority, $524.7 million, continued assistance to cultural groups, $2.5 million, continued support for the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan Secretariat, $9 million. Grant to needy persons, $5 million. The Tobago Science, Technology and Tertiary Education Program, $10 million. The Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute, $15 million. And the Community Action for Renewal and Empowerment Care, $6.9 million. I now turn my attention to the development program estimate. Mr. Presiding Officer, the estimates for the development program for fiscal 2016 amount to $2.31 billion, a decrease of $104.7 million from the fiscal 2015 request to the central government, and an increase of $1.84 billion over the revised 2015 estimate. The development program estimates are disaggregated as follows. Pre-investment studies, $20 million. The productive sector, $7.31 million. Economic infrastructure, $930.1 million. Social infrastructure, $852.1 million. Multi-sectoral and other services, $499.3 million. Our development program estimates for fiscal 2016 reflect an increased investment in economic infrastructure by some $714.4 million, which includes sizable allocations to research and development, agriculture and its downstream industries, tourism and enterprise funding. Our project implementation activities build on last year's funding of various pre-investment studies. The development program funding will assist a variety of public infrastructure projects which stand to benefit the community through the provision of housing, enhancement of education and sporting facilities, improvement of the road network and general infrastructure, while providing additional support for priority sectors including agriculture and tourism. The development program estimates identify several investments in health infrastructure and support services which will ultimately provide Tobagonians with greater access to health care. These proposed activities include the construction of the Moriah Health Center at a cost of $20 million, the expansion of primary health care service, which includes upgrade to the Roxborough Health Center for use as a district health facility, and the renovation of 17 health centers across the island at a cost of $15 million, the establishment of an oncology unit, $2.5 million, the provision of dental equipment to the Charlottesville and Canaan Health Centers, and the purchase of a mobile dental unit at a cost of $3 million, the purchase and installation of equipment at the Scarborough Hospital, $7 million, the establishment of a non-communicable disease registry, $1.3 million, the expansion work at the Studley Park Integrated Waste Facility, $8 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, as we strengthen our healthcare system, it is also important to expand the infrastructure in various communities. Communities are the backbone on which our society is built. Many of the activities planned impact youth, sport, and culture, three elements that enrich the community life. To this end, a substantial component of this year's development program activities focuses on enhancing our social and community infrastructure. These include the construction of the Canaan Bonaccord Community Center, $12 million. Work at the Bell Garden Community Center to support the conversion to a multi-purpose facility, $11 million. Construction of the Charlottesville Community Center, $12 million. Upgrading of the Signal Hill Community Center, $12 million. Construction of community swimming pools, $8 million. Upgrading of 5 pan theaters at a cost of $6 million. Upgrading the Castara Recreation Ground, $5 million. And the construction of community swimming pools, $8 million. Additionally, we will continue to upgrade and expand our road infrastructure in fiscal 2016. Our development program estimates provide for the realignment of the Orange Hill Road, $10 million. The construction of the Store Bay Local Road Extension, $30 million. The Secondary Roads Improvement Program, $65 million. The construction of the Mount St. George Castaro Road, $10 million. The rehabilitation of the Claude Noel Highway, $15 million. The Windward Road Special Development Program, $15 million. The Middle Road Upgrade, $60 million. The expansion of the North Side Road, $10 million. Windward Road Works, $15 million. The Lansome Charlottesville Road Improvement at a cost of $5 million. And construction of the Rockford Bloody Bay Retaining Wall, $7.5 million. Provisions for increasing the housing stock and service lots in order to provide affordable housing to Tobagonians will center on 5 major undertakings. The Adelphi Estate at a cost of $34.6 million. The Bell Garden Estate Phase 2 at a cost of $10.3 million. The Sherburne Road Land Development at a cost of $7 million. Adventure Phase 2 at a cost of $56.7 million. The Blenheim Housing Estate Phase 2 at a cost of $8.3 million. And additional funding for the Home Improvement Grant Program has been increased to $20 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, support for education remains at the core of this administration's agenda. The development program estimates make provision for a variety of work across the island in support of educational programs and the improvement of our educational facilities. We have therefore budgeted for a construction program of $3 million, the development of public library facilities, $3 million, the upgrade of the Happy Haven School, $10 million, the improvement, refurbishment, and extensions to primary school at a cost of $10 million, the establishment of childhood centers, $6 million, the extension and improvement to existing childhood centers, $3 million, the construction of a school for the deaf at a cost of $4 million, the construction of the Scarborough RC School, $15 million, extension and improvement work at the Lambo Anglican School, $2.2 million, extension work at the Lansome Methodist, Plymouth Anglican, the St. Patrick's Anglican, and the Bonaccord Government School at a cost of $1 million each. The implementation of a PAN in the Classroom program, $4.3 million, and the development of physical education and sports in primary schools, $2.4 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, investment and stimulation of the agriculture sector will continue in this fiscal year. A major strategy priority outlined in this budget is the continued revitalization of the agricultural sector, and we will continue to provide the necessary resources to support our farmers. As such, the development program caters for the construction of the abattoir at Kendall at a cost of $19.9 million, the construction of an abattoir at Hope at a cost of $22.3 million, the construction of a farmers market at Goldsboro and Blackrock, $3.7 million, the construction of a new Scarborough market, $15 million, the construction of a jetty at Charlottesville, $2 million, improvement of beaches and landing facilities at Castara, Buku, Plymouth, among others, $20 million, and an extensive agricultural access roads program, $60 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, activities for the developing and diversifying the tourism product are also targeted for implementation in the next fiscal year. The development program estimates provide for additional tourism marketing, $10 million, improvement work at the Speyside Lookout, including the construction of a rest stop and additional parking facilities, $8 million, construction work at the Kings Bay Beach facility, $6 million, infrastructural improvement at Pigeon Point, $10 million, Upgrade of the Bloody Bay Nature Park and Lookout, $1.1 million. The implementation of a coastal erosion protection program, $24 million. And the procurement of 50 Volare buses, $25 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, the development program estimates provide a snapshot of the many initiatives of the Assembly to advance Tobago's development. Our investments seek to impact all sectors of the economy, and the development program estimates, while ambitious, are not unreasonable, and are geared towards quality delivery to the people of Tobago. Mr. Presiding Officer, the only other estimate included in the 2016 fiscal budget is a figure of $78.3 million for URP and $54.1 million for CPEP. For the current fiscal year, both of these programs were significantly underfunded by the central government. For fiscal 2015, $78.3 million was requested for URP, and only $23 million was allocated, a shortfall of 71%. For CPEP, $54.2 million was requested, and only $8 million was allocated, a shortfall of 85%. Recently, with the passage of the 2015 variation of appropriations bill, additional financial resources to the tune of $75 million was provisioned for the CPEP program, but this only applied to Trinidad. Even the Ministry of Tobago Development received an additional sum of $4.67 million to facilitate temporary employment over the period May 2015 to September 2015. Mr. Presiding Officer, to ensure the continuity of both CPEP and URP in Tobago, the Assembly has made special provisions by utilizing previous year's savings to compensate for this shortfall, as I indicated earlier in my review of the recent budgetary financial performance. We sincerely hope that the central government will be more sensitive to our requests for fiscal 2016 in this regard. So, Presiding Officer, please permit me now to address the financing of the expenditure estimates for fiscal 2016. The estimates of revenue, both tax and non-tax, are as follows. Taxes on income and profits, $176.2 million. Taxes on property, $500,000. Taxes on goods and services, $66.62 million. Taxes on international trade, $3.7 million. Other taxes, $7 million, bringing our total tax revenue to $254.03 million. Property income tax, $0.07 million. Other non-tax revenue, $0.95 million, bringing total non-tax revenue to a total of $1.02 million, and the overall tax revenue projected for fiscal 2016 to $255.05 million. Mr. Presiding Officer, although our current revenue collections in Tobago are far less than our allocation, this is not an accurate reflection of our true revenue generating potential. Excluded from these estimates are taxes, fees, duties, levies, and other imposts of firms such as banks and insurance companies operating in Tobago with head offices in Trinidad. The revenues from many of these entities are still paid centrally by their head offices in Trinidad, contrary to the tenets of Act 40 of 1996. Again, we expect the revenue generated by these entities to be quite substantial. Maybe the time has come for the enactment of more robust and effective legislation to compel companies operating in Tobago to pay their taxes in Tobago. Also, the revenues indicated fail to capture revenue generated from activities related to the exploration and production of energy resources in the maritime space around the island of Tobago. And from even cursory estimates, Mr. Presiding Officer, these funds, these resources are quite substantial. This is one of the critical issues that will be addressed in the ongoing discussions for self-governance for Tobago. A question that immediately comes to mind is how then are we to finance our ambitious program of expenditures? We recognize that it has become quite customary since the Dispute Resolution Committee ruling for the Tobago House of Assembly to be allocated close to the minimum share of 4.03% of the national budget. And this is barely what is necessary to avoid a legal challenge, and a far cry from the 8% that was quite cynically and surreptitiously proposed as part of the failed attempt by the central government to seduce Tobagonians on the eve of the last THA elections. We also recognize that while the allocation for recurrent expenditures typically falls short of the Assembly's request, it is funding for development expenditures that remain a primary concern for us in the Assembly. Indeed, for fiscal 2015, while the Assembly was allocated 70% of its requests for recurrent expenditure, it was allocated only 15% of its requests for development spending, thereby leaving several critical development projects significantly underfunded. As an Assembly, we are determined not to let our fiscal constraints stand in the way of Tobago's development. We remain resolute in our efforts to develop Tobago, and we will do, notwithstanding our fiscal challenges, to continue the delivery momentum. Any shortfall in Tobago's development program has the potential to impact employment, economic activity, and the overall standard of living in Tobago if not appropriately managed. We know that the current legislative and constitutional arrangements between the Assembly and central government continue to be a significant constraint on Tobago's development. As it stands now, we do not currently have the authority or the flexibility to engage in certain financial transactions and to source funding to facilitate our development agenda based on our own creditworthiness. Also, under the existing legislative arrangements, Tobago's present and potential contributions to the national purse are not clearly defined, and this significantly weakens our negotiating position for additional funding from the central government. Under the existing legislative arrangement, the Assembly cannot make laws on matters directly affecting Tobago. All these legislative and constitutional arrangements serve to impede and frustrate Tobago's development agenda. And that is why the issue of internal self-government and increased autonomy is so fundamental to us here in Tobago. We know that on an annual basis, the Minister of Finance is faced with huge demands for funding from various government ministries and agencies, as well as the Tobago House of Assembly. We fully understand that the resources available to the Minister are not infinite, and that the Minister faces significant constraints in satisfying the enormous demands for funding from various entities. Therefore, we accept the fact that all our developmental needs cannot be funded from the national purse. We also know that there are other financing options available to Tobago, including the option to borrow. However, under Section 51B of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, Act 40 of 1996, the Assembly requires the approval of the Minister of Finance to borrow to fund capital expenditure. We are therefore seeking the support of the Minister of Finance to utilize alternative financing mechanisms to fund our own development program based on our own creditworthiness. Thus far, the Minister has shown an unwillingness to give the Assembly the requisite approval to engage in in borrowing to finance our development program. Notwithstanding this, my division, the Division of Finance, has been working along with a team of financial experts to develop a proposal to finance some of our development projects through the issuance of a suite of long-term development bonds in various tranches over the next 4 years to assist in funding Tobago's development projects. We hope that as we put our proposal on the table to the Minister of Finance, we hope to do so in the not too distant future. Our preliminary assessment suggests that there would be a strong appetite for these development bonds among institutions and individuals, given the relatively high levels of liquidity in the banking system, the low interest rates environment that currently prevails, and Trinidad and Tobago's manageable domestic debt profile. We do not see this proposal for bond financing as unreasonable, since the central government has approved and issued bonds in the past to finance the operations of many state enterprises, several of which have a narrow mandate and credit ratings that are not as strong as the Assembly's. In an effort to supplement our parliamentary allocations, we also see the need to implement certain revenue enhancement mechanisms aimed at boosting revenue generation on the island. For instance, with the exception of Argyle, the Argyle Waterfall, and Pigeon Point, many of our tourist attractions on the island can be accessed free of charge. And this is something we intend to look at very closely. We'll also give serious consideration to implementing user fees for entrance to our major tourist attractions on the island, such as the internationally famous rainforest, the fort, and the Fort King George. We also recognize the role of a fully operational Studley Park Quarry and the role that this could play towards our revenue generation efforts on the island. Notwithstanding the recent challenges faced at this facility, we believe that this entity has significant potential to become a major revenue generator on the island. We are committed to doing whatever it takes to ensure this entity is once again fully operational and that it could seriously fulfill its real potential. To treat with the funding constraints, Mr. Presiding Officer, we have had several bilateral meetings with regional and international agencies such as the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the American Development Bank, all in an attempt to find ways to address these critical challenges. These discussions have been very encouraging, and we will continue to work with these agencies in ensuring that we source the requisite funds to ensure development thrust in Tobago is not compromised. Another strategy the Assembly is seeking to employ to address the funding constraints is the use of public-private partnerships. The Tobago House of Assembly has formally adopted the use of public-private partnerships as a mechanism for accelerating the public sector investment program in Tobago. A unit was established in December 2014 to serve as a focal point for the PPP initiative. The coordinator has begun laying a foundation for the development of a policy and a program that will build capacity within the public sector to identify, evaluate, plan, and implement public-private partnership projects that will expand the stock of economic and social infrastructure in Tobago. The PPP unit will be responsible for promoting opportunities for investment locally and internationally, acting as a single point of contact and ensuring consistency with investment priorities. It is critical that our projects be both strategic and financially viable to fulfill our development objectives, as well as signal to the market our earnest commitment to partnership. Mr. Presiding Officer, as I bring the curtains down on today's budget presentation, I wish to reiterate how proud I am of what we have been able to achieve over the past year. Our achievements are even more significant in that they did not come without hard work and prudent economic management. Indeed, despite the economic uncertainties faced in the national economy, Tobago's economy is on sound footing, with economic growth occurring simultaneously with low inflation and low unemployment. We have expanded and improved our road networks, our educational infrastructure, our health infrastructure, our community infrastructure, and our recreational facilities throughout the island. Our infrastructure on the island now compares favorably to many countries in the Caribbean region. We now adequately provide social safety net support to all our vulnerable groups in society through a wide array of social programs. All of this has been achieved despite the continued underfunding of our development program budget by the central government. Our achievements were also recorded amidst legislative arrangements between the Assembly and central government that continue to frustrate our developmental plans. The dreams and aspirations of the people of Tobago for self-government continue to be frustrated by a central government that is uninterested in granting Tobago full autonomy. The former political leaders of the major parties in Tobago should be applauded for their sterling effort to advance the aspirations and wishes of the people of Tobago in our quest for internal self-government. The recent court ruling, instead of eliciting the elation from our Tobago opponents, should convince all right-thinking Tobagonians that the issue of Tobago's internal self-government should be resolved as a matter of urgency. Notwithstanding the legislative and financial constraints that we have experienced, we remain steadfast in our resolve to ensure Tobago's development momentum is not compromised and to secure our future and the future of upcoming generations. We are determined to continue to deliver on the mandate that the people of Tobago so graciously bestowed on us in the last Tobago House of Assembly elections. Mr. Presiding Officer, we were elected to lead, and our commitment to the people of Tobago requires that we rise to the occasion. Regardless of the constraints that have been placed upon us that will expire in the next 3 months or so, we will continue to deliver to the people of Tobago. I wish to reiterate that despite our best efforts, there are some challenges which remain insurmountable, and I trust this is the last time that as Secretary of Finance, I have to present a budget statement shackled by the inflexible Section 51B of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996, preventing this administration from engaging in modern financial transactions to advance Tobago's development. Mr. Presiding Officer, this has been an auspicious moment. On behalf of the Chief Secretary, all the secretaries, and Assistant Secretaries of the Tobago House of Assembly, I most wholeheartedly thank you for the privilege of serving the people of Tobago this past year. I thank the members sitting and our distinguished audience within and outside of the chamber for your time and for your attention. May God continue to bless you and all the people of Tobago. I beg to move.